So the first question I want to ask it is, will Nottingham Forest be relegated this season? And let's see what it comes out. So we all know about AI in 2023. Use a chat window, you give it some prompts, and on the other end, it churns out what you're asking for. And people are using this to create logos for their companies, art, and even human faces now. But what about football? Now, obviously, I am a Nottingham Forest fan, and things aren't looking too peachy for us at the moment. We're currently sat 16th in the Premier League without a win in our last 6 games, heading into the international break with about a dozen or so games left of the season. So that got me thinking, could we use an AI chatbot to predict where we'll finish in the Premier League come the end of the season, and maybe even suggest some signings we could make if we were to stay up? So strap yourselves in, because we're heading down the rabbit hole there's ChatGPT as I try and answer the question, can AI fix my football team? So welcome to ChatGPT. This is an AI chatbot that allows us to ask it questions, specifically today, those surrounding my club, Nottingham Forest. Let's get into it. So the first question I want to ask it is, will Nottingham Forest be relegated this season? And let's see what it comes out. Okay, so it didn't quite give me the answer that I was hoping for. At the time of my knowledge, it cut off in September 2021, so I did not realise that the cut-off point for this AI chatbot was 2021, which isn't ideal for what I had planned in this video, but we will move. At the current time of their cut-off, September 2021, the performance of the league leads to us finishing 17th at the time, narrowly avoiding relegation. Well, I suppose if we were in the Championship this season, we would know if we were staying up or not. Okay, that one went a little bit bust. So let's ask it, how can Premier League teams avoid relegation? See what it says to that. Okay, so it's given us a fairly hefty checklist of things that teams need to be doing to avoid relegation from the Premier League. Firstly, consistent performance. I don't think we're really checking that box this season. Strong defence. It could be argued for spells this season. Our defence has been pretty good, but considering we are currently in 16th place with, I think, the 3rd worst goal difference in the Premier League, things could be better in the defensive department. Effective squad management. I think injuries have struck us probably worse than most Premier League teams this season, so I don't think we've managed our squad particularly well. Strategic transfers. I think we've made some good signings. We've also made some pretty poor signings. For every Taiwo Awoniyi and Morgan Gibbs-White, we've also signed Loic Bardet, for example, and Wayne Hennessy. So things haven't gone fantastically well in the transfer market. A strong team spirit. You can argue we probably have that coming off the back of last season. We've retained a decent core of the players that took us up to the Premier League. So in fairness, we do have 1 for 5 at least so far. And a positive mindset. We've spent a lot of money in the last couple of transfer windows. We have backed Steve Cooper with a brand new contract, and we have signed down some really core first team players. So to be fair, I think generally there is a decent positive mindset at the club at the moment. I'm going to say 2 out of 6 of those we're achieving so far. Probably need to be doing a bit better than that though. So the next question I want to ask it is, who should Nottingham Forest sign in midfield? See who it suggests for us. Okay, so I was kind of hoping for an actual player, some actual substantive players for us to sign. Instead, again, it's given us a criteria list like in the previous question. It's given us 5 criteria of midfielders we should be looking for. Firstly, creativity. I actually don't think we need a huge amount more creativity in that midfield. I think Morgan Gibbs-White picks up a lot of the burden of creativity in that midfield. Work rate, you could argue. Again, we've got some decent work rate midfielders in there. Ryan Yates works really hard. Remu Freuler, despite the poor performances since the turn of the year, is a hard-working central midfielder. Physicality, I definitely agree with. I definitely think some physicality in the midfield would be very much useful. Experience, we actually have a pretty experienced midfield on the whole. Ora Mangala's got good experience in the Bundesliga. Remo Freuler, of course, has Champions League experience. John Joe Shelvey has played at a pretty decent level consistently in the Premier League over the last decade. So I'd say experience-wise, we're pretty good. Versatility would definitely be quite useful. We have chopped and changed systems quite frequently. We've played 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 4 in midfield, 3 in midfield, 2 and then a 3. Lots of different midfield compositions. I definitely think versatility would be something we should be looking at, but let's see if we can find some actual players for us to be signing, some actual squad members to add in the summer, hopefully. Name some cheap defensive midfielders who could play for a mid-table Premier League side. Hopefully it actually churns out some decent players for us. Okay, so the 5 players it suggested are actually fairly interesting. The first is Harrison Reed, a fairly decent bog standard Premier League midfielder at Fulham. The second one is Oriol Romeu. I don't think he's at Southampton anymore. I don't know where he's gone off to. I don't think, though, he would be quite the calibre of player we should be looking at. Ollie Norwood at Sheffield United's was pretty decent in the couple of stints that Sheffield United, the couple of seasons they had in the Premier League, has done decent with them in the Championship, I think, at least. Again, though, I don't think he's quite the pedigree of player that we should be looking at. Similar to Lewis Cook, again, has had decent seasons in the past, particularly at Bournemouth, but again, I think we can be doing better than that. And Yves Bissouma, of course, is at Tottenham now. He was at Brighton, was one of the high-rated prospects in central midfield over the last 4 or 5 years, and probably, again, a little bit out of our price range. Let's see if we can get 5 more. Suggest 5 more, please. So I've asked for 5 more Premier League quality defensive midfielders, and these are the 5 they churned out. Hamza Chowdhury from Leicester City. At the moment, I think he's knocking around at Watford in the Championship. Probably not who we should be looking at. Will Hughes is at Crystal Palace. Again, I think he's probably a bit past it, and he also used to play for Derby, so I think that pretty much crosses him off the list. James McCarthy, I don't even know where he's at now. I think he's gone to Celtic or somewhere like that. Pretty much crosses him off the list. Alpha Semedo was a bit of a blast from the past for us Forest fans, was with us for a couple of seasons a few years back, and I don't think he would quite check the bill for Premier League quality at the moment, but you never know. The final one's an interesting one. Gustavo Hamer from Coventry City. He's been doing really well for Coventry in the Championship for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Really solid defensive midfielder, really good defensive numbers for Coventry. I actually think that's a pretty good suggestion. I think if you're looking to bolster your midfield in the summer, I think you could do worse than Gustavo Hamer. He is a very solid Championship midfielder who looks very much ready for that step up to the Premier League, in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to change things up again, and we're going to go for name some cheap and promising forwards who could play for a mid-table Premier League side, and see what it churns out for us. Okay, so the players that suggested to us as promising and cheap mid-table Premier League quality forwards are actually some interesting names. Adam Armstrong at the time was at Blackburn Rovers, of course is now at Southampton. I still think there's a decent forward in there. Might be worth a punt, especially if Southampton go down and we're looking to bolster our attack in the summer. Michael Olise, of course, has gone on to play for Crystal Palace, is one of the most promising forwards in the Premier League, has a ridiculously high ceiling, genuinely a ridiculously talented player, and I think he'll be playing at a much higher level than Crystal Palace in the next few years. No disrespect to them, of course. Ivan Toney, I mean, again, England striker. I think he's basically the second best English forward in the country behind Kane, I would say, at the moment. And again, I think would be a little bit out of our price range. Carlon Grant at West Brom, I don't know where he's at now. I remember him getting a few starts when West Brom were last back in the Premier League a few years ago. Again, though, I think we can do better than that. Josh Madge is an interesting name, to be fair. I don't know what club he's at the moment. He was at Bordeaux on loan at Fulham at the time of this. I know he spent time at Sunderland as well. Maybe there's a player in there. I know he's had a decent goal return in England in the past, but again, I'm not particularly enthused by some of these names. So I've generated 5 more forwards, and I think these are going to be the last ones for this video. The first one is Tyrese Campbell from Stoke City, which is a really sweet one. Obviously, his dad is former head Kevin Campbell, and I think that'll be a really sweet sign if we were to pick him up. Of course, the quality is there. He's done decent things down the Championship. I don't know whether he's necessarily ready for that Premier League step up at the moment, but is definitely a very exciting young striker. Jerry Yates at Blackpool, great example of a Championship striker, really physical, really good in the air. I guess if you were looking for that kind of profile of forward, there's few better in the lower leagues of the sort of English divisions than Jerry Yates. He's done a really good job down at Blackpool. Marcus Forss at Brentford at the time. I think he's at Middlesbrough at the moment. I was checking his numbers out heading into this section, and to be fair, they're pretty decent. I don't know whether necessarily he is the Premier League quality striker that we need to add some extra depth in that position, but maybe he could be that player. Joe Pigott at AFC Wimbledon, I have no idea who that is, and he's playing in the 3rd or 4th division, so I'm not exactly sure he's going to be tearing up trees in the Premier League anytime soon. And Andre Gray, the final player to round things out, has done decent amounts of work at Premier League level. I think he played for Burnley for a while. He's a decent quality striker, isn't he? But I don't think he's going to be playing for a mid-table Premier League side anytime soon, to be fair. So I think that pretty much wraps things out for AI suggested transfers for Nottingham Forest. Please don't take any of this stuff particularly seriously. This was meant to just be a bit of fun to cover us between the international break and our next game against Wolves. If you do want to see a part 2 to this video, I'm more than happy to do so. This was really fun to put together, but please let me know in that comment section down below. And whilst you're down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, and I will see you for the Wolves game a little bit later on.